By the time I turned 30, everything I thought I knew about my family shattered. My brother's life crumbled. My parents lost their home. And as for me, I took back what they had stolen from me all those years. What they didn't know was that I was already one step ahead. I'm Claire Richardson. I'm a finance director, which means I spend my days buried in numbers, balancing budgets, making sure everything works just the way it should. You'd think that would prepare me for the betrayal that came, but nothing could have. I always thought I knew what it meant to be betrayed, but nothing was more painful than what I learned about my family. Growing up, I was the responsible one, the one who did everything right, worked hard for what I had, and followed the rules. And then there was my brother, Kevin. He always got the praise, the attention, the gifts. He was the golden child. I was the one who just made sure everything worked. It wasn't perfect, but I accepted it. After all, that's what family does, right? But the truth, I had no idea just how much I was giving up for him, how much I was letting my parents take from me for his benefit. And the worst part was, I was never even asked. If you've ever felt like you've given everything and got nothing in return, let me know where you're watching from. Maybe you've been the one who always put others first, only to feel like you were left with the scraps. I know that feeling. And trust me, you're not alone. I spent years proving my worth. I worked 2 jobs through college. I paid for my education on my own. While Kevin got whatever he wanted, he didn't even have to lift a finger. My parents always there for him, always saying, "Kevin needs this more than you." Claire. Well, I worked harder. I made it happen. But no one ever asked me how it felt to be the one who sacrificed. And now I'm here telling you that the truth always comes out. What they didn't know was that I was no longer going to be the one left behind. I was done. Growing up, I learned early on that being the responsible one meant constantly putting my needs aside. While my brother Kevin got everything he wanted, new clothes, the latest gadgets, and all the attention from my parents, I learned how to be quiet, how to just deal with it. After all, that was what I was supposed to do. I didn't need much. I was expected to keep things together. But that didn't mean it didn't hurt. The birthday parties, the holidays, those were always about Kevin. I remember when I turned 10, my parents threw Kevin a huge birthday party with his friends, a big cake, and even a magician. I remember standing there, holding my small piece of sheet cake at home. Just me and my family. No big celebration, just quiet. When I turned 10, I was just supposed to be happy with the hand-me-down bike they gave me. It wasn't much, but they said it was good enough. Looking back now, I see it wasn't just about the bike. It was about something much deeper. It was about the way my parents dismissed my feelings. I wasn't supposed to care about what I didn't get. Kevin got the praise. Kevin got the new things. Kevin got the love. And when I pointed it out, they'd always tell me, "You're imagining things, Claire. Don't be so dramatic." But I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't being dramatic. I was just asking for the same things. But they never heard me. As I got older, it didn't stop. Kevin never had to struggle the way I did. While I worked hard to fund my education, my parents paid for Kevin's life as though it was some kind of never-ending entitlement. He didn't even have to ask. He would get what he wanted. And when I needed something, anything, it was always, "You're strong, Claire. You can take care of yourself." So, I did. I took care of myself. But when it came time for me to ask for help, there was always an excuse, and I kept letting it slide. That's what I had been taught to do, keep my head down, keep going, and make it work. It was easier to sacrifice than to ask for anything in return. But all the while, I was building up a quiet resentment, a quiet understanding that I was never going to be good enough for them unless I just kept giving. And giving. I don't think my parents even realized they were doing it. They genuinely believed they were just helping Kevin. But for me, it felt like they were stealing pieces of me that I couldn't get back. I wanted more. I deserved more. But it never came. I didn't ask for much. Honestly, I just wanted to feel valued. I wanted to be more than the person who cleaned up the messes, the one who always took the back seat so everyone else could shine. But no one saw me. And that's when I realized this was a pattern I was trapped in. Kevin would fail. Kevin would be given another chance. And I would always be the one picking up the pieces. Always the one watching from the sidelines. I wasn't angry about it at first. I just accepted it. It was what I had to do. What I had always done. But then something shifted. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that people don't notice when you're giving. They don't notice until you stop. And that's when the real change began. It all started with a simple phone call from my mom while I was in the hospital. I was recovering from a minor surgery. Nothing too serious, but enough that I needed some rest. My mom, always the voice of reason, or so I thought, called to check in. "Claire, I need your engagement ring," she said. "You can't wear that in the hospital. It might get lost. Let us hold on to it for safekeeping." At the time, it seemed harmless enough. I'd just gotten engaged, and I loved the ring. Mark had worked hard for it, every single dollar, but it wasn't like I couldn't live without it for a few days. So, I handed it over. My mom and dad seemed trustworthy enough. But when I got home from the hospital, it was gone. Not the ring I gave them, but the real one, the one that had meant everything to me. I thought I had just missed it. But when I asked my mom about it, she gave me this smile. That smile. The one that says she already has everything figured out. "Thanks to your ring," she said. "Kevin is finally having the time of his life. He's in Miami." My heart dropped. "What do you mean?" She shrugged, as if it was no big deal. "We sold it to help Kevin. He really deserved it. He's been working hard. Working hard. Kevin." I couldn't process what she was saying. I thought maybe I had heard it wrong. "You sold my engagement ring?" I asked, barely able to breathe. She didn't even look guilty. She didn't even flinch. "Don't make this a bigger deal than it is. Claire, you're going to be married soon. You'll get another one. Another one." At that moment, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Years of frustration. Years of being overlooked. Of being the one who was always expected to sacrifice. Hit me all at once. It wasn't just the ring. It was everything. It was how Kevin always got what he wanted. It was how I had been the one who always put everyone else's needs ahead of my own. And in return, I got nothing. I had given everything for my family. And this was the final straw. I had trusted them. I thought that, despite everything, they would at least respect me enough to not cross this line. But they did, and I felt that sickening betrayal deep in my gut. Looking back now, I realize it was never just the ring. It was about power, about control, about my place in the family. Kevin was always the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, and I was just the one who was supposed to clean up after him, who was supposed to give up my dreams so that his could be realized. That night, I sat there, trying to figure out what to do. I didn't confront them immediately. I wasn't ready, but I knew I needed to make a plan. Over the next few days, I started collecting everything I could. Bank statements, receipts, text messages. I couldn't let this go. I had to know exactly what had happened. I had to prove that they had crossed the line this time. And not just with the ring, no. They had been doing this to me for years. They'd taken from me, little by little, and I had let them. I started putting together a timeline, marking the moments when my family's actions made it clear that I was just a pawn in their game. Kevin's needs always came first. My dreams, my goals, my successes, they didn't matter. It hit me like a ton of bricks. They had been exploiting me for as long as I could remember. This wasn't just a simple mistake. This was a pattern. And this time, it wasn't going to be swept under the rug. I wasn't just angry. I was determined. I wasn't going to let them take anything else from me. And what they didn't know was that I had already made up my mind. I wasn't going to just let this go. This was the moment I had been waiting for. I wasn't going to be the one left holding the bag anymore. I wasn't going to be the one sacrificing everything for a family that didn't care about me. They had no idea what was coming, but it wasn't going to be easy. This wasn't going to be a quick fix. The truth had to come out, but it had to be done carefully. I wasn't going to make the same mistake of reacting too fast. No, I was going to play this the right way. And when I exposed them, when the truth finally came to light, it was going to shatter everything. They thought they could manipulate me, that they could keep taking from me. But they were wrong. This time, I was in control, and they were going to learn what happens when you push someone too far. Now that I had everything, now that I understood the full scope of what had been done, it was time to take action. No more sitting back and waiting. No more second-guessing myself. This was my turn. Time for the truth to come out, and time for me to reclaim everything I had lost. The days after I discovered what had happened were a blur. I couldn't just sit there and let my family think they'd gotten away with it. I needed to be calm, calculated. I needed to plan my next move with precision, not emotion. They had pushed me too far, but I couldn't let my anger control me. This had to be about something bigger than just a ring. This was about everything. I sat down one night, after work, and started going through the evidence. The receipts from the ring sale, the screenshots from the family group chat, the bank records that showed how my parents' money had been used for Kevin's trip. Everything was right there, laid out in front of me. The betrayal wasn't just in the ring. It was in how they had consistently chosen Kevin over me, how they'd taken advantage of my willingness to give. Looking back now, it's clear they'd been manipulating me for years. At first, I didn't even notice. I thought I was just doing what I was supposed to. But as time passed, the pattern became undeniable. Kevin would get into trouble, and my parents would be there to pick up the pieces. I, on the other hand, was expected to be the strong one, the one who made everything work, no matter the cost. It wasn't just about the ring. It was about the countless times I had been expected to give up my time, my resources, my peace for the family. And when I needed something, when I needed my parents to show up for me, it was always "You're strong, Claire. You can handle it." But now, I had enough. I had to make them understand that I wasn't going to be the one left holding the bag anymore. I wasn't going to let them use me as their personal safety net while they let Kevin live his life without consequences. I kept thinking about how they had sold my engagement ring, how they hadn't even asked me. It was like my feelings didn't even matter to them. That ring wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was a symbol of everything I had worked for, everything I had sacrificed. And to see it sold without a second thought. For Kevin's trip, it was a slap in the face. I wasn't going to let it go. I started to build my case. I knew I couldn't confront them immediately. It had to be done in a way that would make them realize what they had done. This had to be more than just an emotional outburst. I had to be smart. And as I kept putting together the pieces, it became clear. This wasn't just a one-time thing. This was a pattern of behavior that had been going on for years. And then I made a discovery that changed everything. While I was sorting through the documents, I found something. A message in the family group chat that I hadn't seen before. My mother had sent a message, and in it, She was bragging about how Kevin was finally getting the trip he deserved. I stared at the screen for a long time, reading those words over and over. The trip he deserved. That was when it hit me. It wasn't just about the money. It was about how they viewed me. I was the one who had always been there, always been the responsible one. But Kevin, he was the one who got rewarded, no matter how many times he failed. The truth was clear. This wasn't just about my engagement ring. This was about how they had been exploiting me for years, using my hard work and my sacrifice to make Kevin's life easier. They saw me as the one who could always handle the burden, and they used that against me. Looking back now, I can't believe I ever let it go on for so long. I thought I had to keep doing it. Thought I had to keep giving in. But now, I saw the truth. I didn't have to keep sacrificing myself for them. I wasn't just a tool they could use. I wasn't just a second-rate child. I was worthy of respect. And I wasn't going to let them take that away from me anymore. I knew what I had to do. I had to take control. I had to turn the tables. I wasn't just going to sit back and watch them destroy everything I'd worked for. I wasn't going to be the scapegoat any longer. They thought they could sell my ring and get away with it. They thought that they could keep using me to fix their problems. But what they didn't know was that I was done playing by their rules. I had the proof. I had the evidence. And I wasn't going to let them get away with this. It was time for the truth to come out. When everything was finally in place, I felt a surge of determination. I wasn't just angry anymore. This wasn't about venting my frustration. This was about taking control. The path forward was clear. No more second guessing. No more wondering if I was doing the right thing. I was going to make them face the truth. But I had to be smart about it. This wasn't about an emotional outburst. I wasn't going to scream, yell, or cry. I had already done enough of that. Silently. Over the years, this time, I was going to hit them where it hurt. And it wasn't going to be with rage, it was going to be with precision. I started by gathering every piece of evidence I could find. I wasn't just going to confront them in person and give them a chance to twist the story. No, I needed something irrefutable. Every screenshot, every bank record, every text message that showed their behavior had to be laid out in front of them, so they couldn't deny it. I called my lawyer. This wasn't something I could handle alone anymore. I needed professional advice, guidance, and support. We'll need everything you've got, my lawyer said, going through the details over the phone. Receipts, screenshots, and if you have any recordings or witnesses, use them. We can't let them wiggle out of this. I didn't have recordings, but I did have everything else. It was all there. Every transaction, every line of text, every social media post where they bragged about Kevin's indulgence. I'd even saved every message they had sent me about my so-called responsibilities. They couldn't run from this now. But the most important thing was the financial side. The sale of my engagement ring wasn't just a betrayal, it was financial exploitation. I wasn't going to let them get away with that. Either. This wasn't a petty family argument. This was theft. And I was going to make sure they paid for it. After I had everything ready, I sat with my lawyer again. I think it's time, he said after reviewing the evidence. We have a solid case. You've documented everything. Now, it's just about timing. I had to make sure everything was perfect. This wasn't going to be a public spectacle just yet. No. I had to keep my cards close to my chest. At least for now. I knew that once I dropped the bomb, there would be no turning back. That night, I couldn't sleep. The weight of what I was about to do hung heavily in the air. The moment I hit send, the moment I revealed everything to my family, there would be no going back. I would expose everything, and there would be no way to undo it. I wasn't doing this for some petty revenge. I was doing this for myself. I was doing this to reclaim my dignity, my power, and my peace. I waited until the morning, and then I made my move. I wrote a message to the family group chat. I knew it would get their attention. I had saved up so many years of resentment, and now it was time to lay it all out. The truth had to be seen, had to be understood, in black and white. The message was simple, but it would change everything. Hey, everyone. I need to share something with you all. My engagement ring was sold by Mom and Dad to fund Kevin's Miami trip. I just thought you should know the truth. I hit send. The silence in the group chat was deafening. Then the messages started flooding in. At first, it was disbelief. Then came the questions. But it didn't matter. I had laid it out. And now, there was no hiding from it. I sat back, watching the chaos unfold. My phone buzzed as my mom tried to call. Then my dad. I ignored the calls. They couldn't twist this. They couldn't make me the bad guy anymore. Not this time. My brother Kevin didn't understand what was happening either. What's going on? Claire, he texted. Why are you doing this? I could almost hear his confusion, his panic through the screen. He had no idea what I was about to expose. But I didn't answer him. I didn't owe him anything. It wasn't about him anymore. It was about me. Then came the voice notes. My mom, my dad. They tried everything to make me feel guilty. But I wasn't falling for it. The guilt trips. The you don't understand what we've been through. None of it mattered. They had crossed a line. And now they were trying to turn it back on me. But I knew better. This time, I was in control. I wasn't going to be manipulated again. I let them scramble. The next few hours were a blur of messages, calls, and denial. But the truth was already out. There was no going back for them. The damage was done. It wasn't just about the engagement ring anymore. It was about everything that had been building up for years. The way they had always played favorites. The way they'd used me. The way they'd treated me as second best. And I wasn't going to stand for it anymore. The next morning, I got a message from my mom. We'll fix this, it said. We didn't mean to hurt you. It was for the family. Please. Claire, don't do this. I laughed. It wasn't for the family. It was for Kevin. Always for Kevin. And that was the part they didn't understand. They had always made excuses for him. And now it was time for them to see the consequences of their actions. I wasn't interested in fixing it. There was no fixing this. My family had already made their choices. And now it was time for me to make mine. The truth was finally out. And I was watching as my family scrambled to save face. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Calls, texts, voice messages. It was like they were all in damage control mode. But there was no going back. The truth had been exposed. And nothing they said could change that now. I didn't pick up the calls. I didn't need to hear the excuses anymore. They were trying to shift the blame. Trying to make me feel guilty. But I wasn't going to let them twist this into something I had done. They had crossed the line. And I wasn't about to let them minimize it. Not this time. My mom sent a message, full of apologies. We didn't mean to hurt you. You know how much we love you. This is about family. Please, Claire, forgive us. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't about love. It wasn't even about family. This was about control. This was about how they had always used me for their convenience, and how they had always expected me to keep forgiving them. But no more. I stared at my phone for a long moment before responding. But instead of replying right away, I turned my attention to the next step. I knew that if I was going to take back what was mine, I needed to make sure the consequences matched the betrayal. I wasn't going to let this be swept under the rug. This wasn't something that could be fixed with a few apologies or promises. I had spent years being the one who picked up the pieces. And now, it was time for my parents to face the consequences of their actions. I had everything I needed. The evidence. The records. The screenshots. All of it. I had been strategic, gathering everything over time. I wasn't just going to expose them to the family, I was going to make sure this was known beyond just my immediate circle. I had to make sure they understood that what they did wasn't something they could get away with. I went ahead and contacted a financial advisor and a lawyer. My lawyer was already on board. But now, I needed to take things to the next level. I had to make sure my financial security was protected, and that any consequences they faced were real and irreversible. "What are you planning to do next?" my lawyer asked as we went over the details. "I'm going to expose them to their professional networks," I said, my voice calm but firm. They need to face the consequences of their actions, not just in the family, but in their careers as well. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. Then he replied, "That's a bold move, but it might be exactly what they need. We'll make sure you're protected legally. But once you start making this public, there's no turning back." And that was exactly it. Once I exposed them, their lives would change. The damage would be permanent. And I wasn't doing it out of spite. I was doing it because they needed to understand the consequences of using me for their own benefit. I contacted people in my parents' professional circles. I made sure the message got out there. This wasn't just a personal issue. This was a matter of trust, of ethics. I didn't care about the gossip. I wasn't worried about how they'd react. I was more focused on making sure my own future was secure. That the damage they had done to me wasn't going to be brushed under the rug. As I sent the emails and shared the truth with the people who mattered, my phone kept buzzing with more and more messages from my family. They tried everything, guilt trips, pleading, blaming me for the rift they had created. "You're tearing the family apart." My dad's voice crackled in one of the voice notes. "You're being dramatic. Don't you understand how serious this is?" But I was done. I had stopped feeling guilty a long time ago. This wasn't about saving face or pretending things were okay. This was about justice, about holding them accountable. Kevin tried too. Of course, he messaged me several times, calling me selfish, telling me I was ruining everything. But in the end, I realized it didn't matter what they said. The truth was out, and the weight of their actions was no longer mine to carry. The fallout was inevitable. My parents lost their standing in the community. Their friends began to ask questions. People who had always looked up to them started questioning their actions. Kevin's reputation took a hit as well. He couldn't hide behind the mask of poor, struggling son anymore. And all of this, it wasn't just about their social circles crumbling. It was about them finally seeing the consequences of years of manipulating me. As I watched everything unfold, I felt a strange sense of relief. I wasn't the one hiding anymore. I wasn't the one carrying the shame. For the first time in my life, I felt free. But the most significant moment came a week later. My parents tried to contact me again. But this time, it wasn't the same. They weren't calling to apologize or explain. They were calling to beg for help. "We've lost everything. Claire, we need you. You're our daughter. Don't do this to us." But I wasn't going to fix it this time. I wasn't going to be the one to make it all right for them. They had broken me for years, and now it was their turn to face the consequences. I looked at the phone in my hand, and for the first time in a long while, I smiled. They had no idea what true consequences felt like, but they would soon, and I would be watching from the outside, knowing I had finally taken back control of my life. It's been more than a year since the truth came out, since I took back what was mine, since I stopped being the person who always cleaned up everyone else's messes. The changes in my life have been nothing short of liberating. I remember the days after everything unfolded, the chaos that followed. My family tried everything they could to salvage what was left, but there was no going back. My parents never really understood why I cut ties with them. They still wanted to pretend like everything was okay. But for me, the damage was done. They couldn't erase the years of neglect and manipulation. And honestly, I couldn't continue pretending that they hadn't hurt me. But that's where things changed. I found peace. I found myself. I wasn't the person who always played second fiddle anymore. And I wasn't going to be the one to keep forgiving them for their mistakes. I spent a long time after the fallout questioning everything. I questioned myself, my choices, my relationships. But what I learned through all of this was that there are people out there who will treat you the way you deserve. They'll see your worth. They'll support you. And they won't ask you to sacrifice everything for them. In time, I began to build a new life. One where I was surrounded by people who respected me, who valued me for who I was, not for what I could do for them. I found a career I loved even more, where I felt like I could actually breathe. My professional world blossomed, and I started finding joy in the small moments, the moments that never seemed to matter before. And then, there's the most significant change of all my chosen family. The people who came into my life and reminded me that family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who truly care for you, the ones who show up when it matters most, and who don't expect anything in return. They've become my new support system, the people I turn to when I need advice, or a hug, or just someone to laugh with. I know now that I'm worthy of that. Worthy of respect, worthy of love. And I don't need to prove myself to anyone who doesn't see that. What surprised me the most through all of this was that my new family wasn't just supportive. They understood. They knew what it was like to be taken advantage of by family, to feel like you were the one always giving, and yet somehow still being left behind. And that was a lesson in itself. The validation I didn't even know I needed. That's why now, I can finally look back without the anger I once felt. Don't get me wrong. I'm still angry about what they did. But that anger isn't what drives me anymore. What drives me now is the freedom to live for myself, the clarity to make choices that benefit my own life, not someone else's. As for my birth family, they're still out there, doing what they do. They've lost their status in the community. Kevin's life didn't go as planned either. His so-called big break from the Miami trip didn't turn into anything meaningful. The girl he was so focused on, she dumped him shortly after the trip. I guess it's true what they say, you can't buy love. And my parents, they tried to rebuild their reputation. But nothing really works when the truth is out. Their house, their lives, everything down to the family business came crashing down in ways I never could have imagined. In a way, I'm not sorry for them. I don't regret what I did. Because it needed to happen. They needed to be held accountable for their actions. And I needed to break free. And now, I'm building something that's truly mine. A life where I'm not the one who has to sacrifice. A life where I don't have to choose between my happiness and my family's expectations. As for Mark, well, he's been my rock through all of this. We're stronger than ever. Our relationship isn't perfect, but it's real. He's the first person who has ever made me feel truly seen and valued. And I'm grateful for him every day. It feels strange, but in a good way. For the first time in my life, I'm not waiting for someone else's approval. I'm not looking for validation from people who never saw me for who I was. I'm living for me. And that's the most freeing thing I've ever experienced. So, here I am, sitting back and reflecting on everything that's happened. And if you've ever had to make a hard choice, if you've ever had to cut ties with toxic people to finally live for yourself, then you know what it feels like to choose your own peace over their chaos. Have you ever had to make that kind of decision? Have you ever had to choose yourself, even when it meant letting go of people you thought would always be there? Let me know in the comments. If my story resonates with you, hit like, subscribe, and share it with anyone who might need to hear it. Because at the end of the day, We all deserve a life where we are truly valued. And that's what I've finally built for myself. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, when you choose yourself, everything else will fall into place.